Tip-offs about tax fraud surge as the tax office cracks down on the black economy. Vocus Group bids $5.25 billion for TPG assets, and the biggest study of its kind finds that social media use in teenagers is strongly correlated to higher anxiety and depression. Welcome to Fear and Greed, daily business news for people who make their own decisions. It is Tuesday, the 15th of October 2024. I'm Michael Thompson, and good morning, Sean Aylmer.
Good morning, Michael.
Sean, the main story this morning, the ATO has received 250,000 tip-offs from the community about tax avoidance and other dishonest behaviours in the past 5 years, leading to tens of millions of dollars of reclaimed taxes. That is a lot of dobbing.
It certainly is. There were 47,000 tip-offs last year, and the ATO Assistant Commissioner Tony Godding said Australians are fed up with dodgy behaviours in the community. He said the tip-offs included taxpayers not declaring income, businesses demanding cash from customers, organisations paying workers in cash to avoid paying tax and super, and not reporting sales. People are also reporting when someone's lifestyle doesn't appear to match their income. Now, the ATO estimates there's around $16 billion in stolen taxes each year, thanks to things like cash jobs. The ATO provided a few examples, one which I loved. I got to tell you what it is, Michael.
Go on.
Basically, in one case, a hairdresser advertised on Facebook to friends, didn't register her business, operated without an ABN, and didn't report her business income in tax returns. So I don't know that I know someone that does that, but I can kind of get that. But then a friend came along and on social media noticed that she kept wearing really nice clothes and had these incredibly luxurious overseas holidays. Clearly not impressed, tipped off the ATO. The hairdresser, she faces $1 million in penalties, and that's before she has to start repaying tax.
Oh my God. God, can you imagine trying to figure out who it was that dobbed you in? It sounds like that has got a reality TV show written all over it, Sean.
Yeah.
The 250,000 tip-offs is a huge, huge number. That's a lot of calls coming in, a lot of emails, a lot of kind of online reporting. How many of those would actually be followed up by the tax office?
When the ATO gets a tip-off, it cross-checks the information and assesses whether further action is required. I'd imagine a lot of that would have to be done via data as opposed to phone calls and things like that. The ATO says about 90% of tip-offs are deemed worthy of further investigation. That's an incredible number. What's that? 225,000 investigations in the last 5 years. Building and construction, cafes and restaurants and hairdressing and beauty services top the list of industries the ATO has been tipped off about. That's in the last financial year. And tips are coming from other businesses, no doubt, customers, members of the community, employees, and even family and friends. While Sydney and Melbourne had the most tip-offs, the top 5 regional hotspots, in terms of postcodes, all from regional Queensland.
You're kidding.
Don't know what it means, but I get competitors being pretty upset because if you're not paying tax, you can undercut your competitors. But the family and friends bit, ouch.
Family and friends. God, very salacious. What a way to start Fear and Greed today.
Very appropriate.
Yeah, indeed. Local markets. Let's take a look at what happened yesterday.
The S&P ASX 200 closed up 0.5% to finish at 8,253 points. Among the large caps, the iron ore miners did well, led by Fortescue Metals Group, which rose more than 3%. Rio Tinto was up 1.7%. Other notables among the mega caps included CSL, ANZ and Macquarie. They all ended 1% higher. Woodside and Transurban both dropped by around 1%. The gold miners did pretty well. Regis Resources, Bellevue Gold, West African Resources were among the best of the top 200. The miners did well. South32 rose more than 4%. Worst on the day was Web Travel Group, which was created in a demerger of Webjet earlier this month. It fell 35%. Following a disappointing results update where it said margins in its European web beds business remain subdued. It was also a tough day for the gaming companies, Tabcorp and the Star Entertainment. Both fell.
Of course, Sean, it's AGM season at the moment. We always talk about it every year. And after the show, you have an interview with Stephen Mabb, Chair of the Australian Shareholders Association.
Sure do. We talked to Stephen, Telstra's AGM is on today, Commonwealth Bank's tomorrow. We talked to him about the role the Australian Shareholders Association plays, particularly for retail investors during the AGM season. We talk about the things that are continually mentioned. Bit of an enthusiast for AGMs. Stephen is. I'm a bit of an enthusiast myself. And so it's a great chat about what goes on and just how retail investors in particular can use AGM season to find out more information about the companies they invest in.
My favourite question that you asked him, Sean,
Yes.
came right at the very end. And I won't spoil the answer, but when you asked him, and I knew you were going to ask him this because you always mention it. Whenever we talk about AGMs, you talk about the fact that some AGMs have better food for attendees than others. And you asked him, in all of his experience at attending so many of these meetings, which one puts on the best spread? And his answer was quite a surprise.
Well, his answer was immediate.
Yeah.
So obviously it's something that he had thought about himself because there was no pre-warning. He just went blah and gave us the name of the company.
Yep.
And I'm certainly going to that AGM next time.
Oh yeah, me too. I'm buying shares just to access the lunch. Anyway, international markets, what's going on?
Well, another day, another briefing from Chinese officials about attempting to stimulate the world's second largest economy, and another disappointment, this time from the Ministry of Finance. Not a lot of detail, not a lot to move markets. I mean, probably that's not strictly true. It did move markets, but not by much. Oil did fall on the news. Gold was higher. And Michael, the Aussie dollar is buying 67.4 US cents.
Sean, we've got a bit to get through. We'll be back in a moment with the rest of the day's business news. Sean, Vocus Group has bought TPG Telecom's fibre network and fixed line enterprise business for $5.25 billion in a deal its proponents claim will make digital telecommunications more competitive.
The deal allows Vocus to add 24,000 kilometres of TPG's urban fibre network in Australian cities to its own 27,000 kilometres of fibre. Some of that is in regional Australia. Basically, it creates a third fibre network force behind Telstra and Optus, and Vocus says it will step up competition in the market. TPG is happy to get rid of its fibre business to put its efforts into mobile. It comes after a deal worth $6.3 billion failed last year. Now, unlike the previous structure, the new agreement doesn't include any of that mobile business. If the deal's approved by regulators, Vocus will operate fibre that connects to about 20,000 buildings in Australia's capital cities, and around 560 TPG staff will transfer to the new owner. Now, TPG is listed. Its share price fell more than 4% yesterday on the news. Vocus is owned by Macquarie Asset Management and Aware Super. No share price, obviously, but it's another example of an infrastructure asset going private.
The latest news poll, Sean, has put the coalition ahead of the Labor Party on a two-party preferred basis for the first time since the Albanese government won power.
With an election due by the middle of May next year, the polls are starting to become much more relevant, and the news poll conducted for The Australian puts the coalition ahead 51 to 49%. The primary vote for the major parties, 38% for the coalition, 31% for the Labor Party, is unchanged. It's where the preferences are shifting around a bit. The Greens are lower, Pauline Hanson's are higher. When you push those preferences to the coalition and Labor, that's why you get the change. Mr Albanese's approval rating fell to its lowest level since he took the top job, though he is still well ahead of opposition leader Peter Dutton as preferred Prime Minister.
Sean, it's a case of when, not if, a deadly bird flu pandemic arrives in Australia. The country's top medical expert has warned as almost $100 million is allocated to dealing with an outbreak.
The federal government will spend $95 million preparing for the H5N1 strain of bird flu, which has caused respiratory illness, reduced egg production and sudden death among wild birds and some mammal species in other countries, according to a report on AAP. The H5N1 strain of bird flu is different from the strain seen in Australia earlier this year, which led to egg shortages in supermarkets. Australia is the only continent without the H5N1 strain, but National Chief Medical Officer Paul Kelly says it's coming, most likely via migratory birds. He said it is important to get ahead of the curve. Professor Kelly said a bird flu outbreak would not lead to human health issues, but would spread in the same way as other influenza viruses.
Earnings at Virgin Australia have jumped by almost a fifth to $519 million, meaning 2 years in a row of profit after more than a decade of deficits.
The growth in underlying earnings released in a statement yesterday compares with a 17% fall at its larger rival Qantas for the 12 months to June. However, Virgin hasn't released its full accounts and didn't report an overall profit figure for the year, according to the Fin Review. Virgin Chief Executive Joan Herdlicker said the jump in earnings shows the success of the airline's transformation under its private equity owners Bain Capital, which acquired the carrier after the company collapsed at the start of the COVID-19 pandemic. Last month, Bain agreed to sell a 25% stake in Virgin to Qatar Airways. If approved, it will allow Virgin to restart long-haul international flights.
Sean, I was reading some of the appreciation shown by Virgin management to staffers from within Virgin. Every employee receiving 54,000 velocity points and a $1,000 travel voucher as a thank you.
Oh, good on them.
It's not a bad way to show your appreciation for the staff that have helped you achieve that result, right?
Yeah. Totally. Thanks. Good on them.
Anyway, little tidbit there. Sean, the head of the ACTU, Sally McManus, says she has had to live in multiple places and change her routine due to security concerns following the crackdown on the CFMEU.
She told the ABC that it is her life at the moment and it's the price to pay for standing up to people. The CFMEU went into administration in August following reports that bikies and underworld figures had infiltrated the union, including by being gifted lucrative delegate roles and labour hire agreements. Ms McManus said police have been helpful. She said unions were absolutely committed to standing up to intimidation, standing up to violence and standing up to corruption.
And Sean, Treasury Wine Estates has struck an in-principle agreement with Maurice Blackburn and Slater and Gordon to settle a class action over a profit downgrade that sent its share price tumbling 25% back in early 2020.
Yes, so Treasury said it makes no admission of liability, but it made a commercial decision and the full settlement amount will be met by insurance. The class action alleged that Treasury Wines breached its market disclosure obligations and engaged in misleading or deceptive conduct by not telling the market earlier than January 28, 2020, that its US performance had been deteriorating since mid-2018. Now, the company said there were further steps required to finalise the matter with a deed of settlement and approval from the Supreme Court of Victoria, but a lot was made of this when it was launched, and it looks to have come to some sort of agreement.
All right, turning to international news now, and we have to talk about this one, Sean, because it is really quite spectacular. Elon Musk's SpaceX accomplished a momentous technical feat about 24 hours ago by catching a booster rocket with mechanical arms on its return from a test flight.
SpaceX launched an unmanned Starship rocket with its super heavy booster. After a brief flight into the atmosphere, the booster broke away from the Starship and descended vertically, slowing its descent with engine blasts. The booster fell directly back to the launch pad, where it was caught by the tower's metal arms amid a roar of smoke and fire. Now, this is according to the Financial Times, but it's worth chasing this to look at it. Quite incredible. Elon Musk on X, I quote him, "The tower has caught the rocket. Big step towards making life multiplanetary was made today. Even in this day and age, what we just saw is magic." The rest of the ship orbited Earth and then splashed down into the Indian Ocean as planned. Michael, you would agree it's magic, wouldn't you?
I was absolutely blown away by this.
Yeah.
Sean, I have watched that video over and over and over again. And the first time you see it, you will think that what you're seeing is from a movie. Or that it cannot possibly be real, because it's an absolutely monstrous kind of piece of metal that is just coming down and down, and it is going fast. And then all of a sudden it slows down and it just somehow manages to land neatly back on the launch pad. There it is.
It changes orientation. The only thing I can think of it, when you're playing a game and you see things move on the screen that move back towards that.
Yep.
In real life, I've never seen anything like it. It is phenomenal. In fact, Michael, I'm wearing my space T-shirt today in honour of that for you.
I was wondering why I'd walked into the studio with your space T-shirt on. It's good to see you getting into the spirit of things.
How can you not get into that one?
Yeah. All right. But go check it out. It is just amazing. You do need to see this. Now, moving on, a man carrying illegal firearms, ammunition, and fake passports was arrested near a Donald Trump rally in California over the weekend in what might have been a third assassination attempt on the former president.
The 49-year-old was driving a black SUV at a security checkpoint close to Trump's rally in Coachella Valley. The man was taken into custody after he was found to be illegally carrying a shotgun, a loaded handgun with a high-capacity magazine, ammunition, and multiple fake passports and licenses, the sheriff's office said. The suspect was charged with firearms offences before being released, and he is believed to be a member of the anti-government group Sovereign Citizens. Members maintained that the nation's laws do not apply to them. The arrest, of course, follows 2 assassination attempts on Trump, which have sparked concerns that America's highly polarised election could trigger political violence.
And I mentioned this one at the top of the show, Sean. The biggest study of its kind has found that social media use in teenagers is strongly correlated to higher anxiety and depression.
Academics from Oxford University, who are carrying out the largest global study of teenager mental health based on British data, said their initial research had found about 60% of 16 to 18-year-olds spent between 2 and 4 hours a day on social media sites. They also found a linear relationship between higher rates of anxiety and depression and time spent networking on social media sites. The study found girls report more mental health issues than boys, and the top 5 most frequently used social media platforms are Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok, WhatsApp, and YouTube. It concludes that increasing sleep and exercise alone would greatly improve the mental health of this age group.
Okay, up next is the Fear and Greed Daily interview. We mentioned it earlier. Stephen Mabb, Chair of the Australian Shareholders Association, is your guest today.
Ahead of the AGM season, big one today, Telstra, tomorrow Commonwealth Bank. We ask what to expect from the AGMs this season and what the shareholders think of different things.
So it's coming up next in the Fear and Greed playlist on your podcast platform or at fearandgreed.com.au. Thanks very much, Sean.
Thank you, Michael.
It is Tuesday, the 15th of October, 2024. Make sure you're following the podcast and please join us online on LinkedIn, Instagram, X, TikTok and Facebook. I'm Michael Thompson and that was Fear and Greed. Have a great day.